Hello, and welcome back to the second video of my Introduction to RimWorld series. I thought in this video I would just go over kind of the general way to play the game and some of the basic controls, and then also what to prioritize for your first day and week on the planet after you've crash landed and started this scenario. So let's get right into it. So at the end of last video, we crash landed and we saw the general map that we are in. And I'm still of the mind that I probably want to start my colony somewhere here in the middle, and also next to this patch of rich soil that's right over here. So I think I might start making my first building right about here. But before we get into that, there are a few things that you should do before you even get going on the construction of your colony. So pretty much anything you want to do in this game is going to happen in the bottom here on these bottom menu tabs. And the first one I want to direct you to is the Work tab. This is where you get to prioritize and tell your colonists which colonist does what and what kind of jobs they should be doing. By default, this is all just kind of a check mark system where you either do the job or you don't. But I like to put on manual priorities. And what this will do is basically you're going to number all these jobs from 1 to 4. 1 being a higher priority, 4 being the lowest priority. And a colonist will start on the left and go down to the right. So if everything was a 1, they would do firefighting first, which means putting out fires. Then they would be a patient. Then they would do doctoring all the way down until research would be the last thing. But what they'll do is they'll go from left to right, and they'll start with all the 1s, and they'll do all of those. Then they'll start back at the top and do all the 2s, and then start back at the top, do all the 3s, and then get to the 4s. Usually, if they're doing it in a full day, they won't usually get to their 4s or even their 3s, depending on how many jobs they have assigned to them. Because at the end of the day, once they wake up, they kind of start that system back. Actually, at the end of any job, they will kind of go back and see, after they've done a handling job, they might be going on to hunting, but there might now have been a wardening job that's opened up since then, so they'll go back and do wardening. So they're kind of constantly going through the progressions. Anyway, let me show you the way I always set up my character's work priorities. Now, you can always just click. If you left click on any of these, it'll increase it by 1, and then it will cycle through, be 0, and go back up from 4 to 1. If you right click, it'll cycle down. If you click up here, if you shift click, it'll affect everyone's. So I'm going to shift click firefighting to a 1 priority, patient to a 1 priority, bed rest to a 1 priority, and basic to a 1 priority. I do this for all colonists. Basically, what this means is they will always prioritize firefighting. If there's a fire in the base, they will stop what they're doing and try to fight that fire. Also, if they're injured, they will prioritize going into bed, preferably a hospital bed, in order to get better. Bed rest means if they're tired, they will sleep. So it's never good for a pawn to be working while they're exhausted, because their manipulation and all their stats are really low, and so they won't even do a good job, even if they're particularly skilled at a task, if they're really tired while doing it. So you want them to be sleeping when they're tired. And basic is just kind of minor things that don't require skill. That's like flipping on a light switch or opening something or whatever. You just want them to be able to do those basic tasks as they come across them, so that they get done. So then I look to see who my doctor is. And if you float over any particular colonist's square, it'll tell you what their relevant skill level is at. So Guillermo's my doctor. Not only does he have a minor passion in it, you can see the little flame in the corner there, but he has the highest skill. So I'm going to make him a 1. Now, there is a school of thought that your doctor, whoever your dedicated doctor is, they should then prioritize being a patient second. So that means, if the doctor is also injured, but there are other people injured as well, the doctor will first patch up as many people as they can, and then they'll be a patient. I'm going to start off like this, but once we get a second person that's good at doctoring, I put everyone's patient priority at 1, and then the doctors, I put their priority at 1. So usually it's rare that all the doctors will be injured and need to do that. But so that's what I do. Then from here on, I look at what they're good at. And if they're good at something and I want them to prioritize that, I make that a 2. So wardening is dealing with prisoners, trying to recruit them onto your side. So that's about social skill. So if we see here, Anessa has a passion in social skill, but Maxie has the highest skill right now. So I'm going to have, even though we don't have anyone to warden right now, I'm going to have Maxie be a warden. And it's actually usually good to have a couple of wardens because they not only try to recruit the prisoners, but they also feed them. So the more people you have hands on deck, dealing with the prisoners, less likely the prisoners are to starve and be unhappy. Handling is the skill dealing with training animals. Maxie and Guillermo both have a very high skill in this and a passion. I'm going to make Guillermo our primary handler. Is Tova Tova is our horse that we started with. You can go over here to the animals tab, and this little heart means they're bonded. And their master is Maxie. So they're bonded to Maxie. And if you notice, Maxie will get a +5 bonus to her mood because she is bonded with an animal that she's the master of, which is always great. If your animal gets bonded, definitely make their master the person that they've bonded with. It'll also make them easier to train if they're being trained by that person. And it gives a mood boost, so it's all good. So because of that, I'm also going to make sure that Maxie handles as well. And Nessa does not do animals, so I will keep that there. All right, so here's where we have to make the decision of who our cook is. So I am going to make Maxie our cook, even though she has a low skill in it. She's the only one that has a passion in it. Actually, Guillermo has a passion too, but Guillermo is so spread across the board in what he's going to want to do and be good at doing that Maxie's only good at animals and cooking, or not even good at cooking yet, but anyway, so Maxie is going to be our cook. So I'll actually reduce handling. She'll get around to handling after cooking. Hunting is a skill that the skill level for is kind of taken by an average of their skill in animals and their skill in shooting. If you want to hunt, you have to have a ranged weapon. You can't hunt with a melee weapon. And I'll go into the more specifics about the mechanics behind hunting, but basically you really want your best shooter to be your hunter. So I believe Guillermo doesn't have him. I believe Anessa is our best. Yeah, Anessa is our best shooter. So I'm actually going to make her the hunter, even though she's not good at animals. Again, I'll talk about hunting in either later in this video or in a different video. So we're going to make Anessa our hunter. All right, construction. Early on, everyone should be prioritizing construction because we just need to get a base up and running. But this is going to be a big struggle for this colony because no one is good at construction. Maxie and Guillermo have 0, and Anessa only has a 3. You really need at least a 4 in order to do the basic electronic devices. So we're really going to need to build that up at least with Nessa. So yeah, construction's going to be slow and hard early on, but it's a necessary thing. All right, growing is also a very early on need. No one is good at it, and no one has a passion for it, so I'm just going to make Nessa do that. Mining. Guillermo has the passion for it, so I'll put him on that, even though Anessa has some skill in it, so I'll make her a 3 in that. Plant cutting. Plant cutting, we're going to want to cut trees down early on, and even though no one has a skill in plants, I'm going to want everyone to be doing that. Smithing, tailoring, and crafting are all based off of the crafting skill. It looks like Anessa is the only one that has a passion for it, and only has a 2 skill. So I'll make her a crafter. You'll notice that now Anessa has a lot of things she's doing. So she won't be wardening early on, and we won't be hunting immediately. So she'll be constructing and doing plant stuff, and then she might get to crafting. But again, you don't usually craft early on because you need to get a craft bench or a smithing table up and running. Art is very important for keeping your colonists happy, but is not the most pressing thing early on. We'll probably make Maxie she's going to be the cook, but heck, we can have her do art when she's not cooking. All right, hauling and cleaning are going to be a priority. Hauling's going to be a priority early on. We're actually going to move that up for a 1 temporarily. Guillermo will be our researcher when it comes time to research. Cleaning is always important. Right now, we do not need to prioritize it. So I'm actually going to up plant cutting for everyone and hauling for everyone. All right, so that is the work schedule thing. That's what I do. Basically, 1's in the first 5 things. Not if you're a doctor, don't put anything there. And then everything is a 2 or a 3. I don't usually bother with 4s. If it's low enough to be a 4, I just put a 0 on it. It won't allow you, you can micromanage a pawn and tell them to, cut this tree, even if it's not on their current work priority list, it wouldn't be coming up next. You can tell them to, drop what you're doing and do this thing. You cannot assign them to do something that they haven't been assigned in work. So right now, as it stands here, I could never tell Maxie to craft something at the crafting bench right now because she doesn't even have a 4 priority to it. So I would need to at least give her a 4 in order to even tell her to work on it. That's usually something that you just, fudge when the time comes. Anyway, I'm putting up plant cutting first because one of our first things we're going to do is cut a bunch of trees. And we're going to need to haul all of our belongings into the first room that we make. Okay, so that's the work schedule. The second thing I want to talk about is the schedule. This is basically all hours of the day, what are the colonists doing? By default, all it does is they do anything during the day and they're sleeping at night. If you remember, Anessa is a quick sleeper. So that means she doesn't need to sleep as long as other people do. So what I like to do for this instance is I actually like to get rid of everything. And really, at 10 and 11 p.m., I tell them to sleep. Basically, this means, it doesn't mean only sleep for 2 hours. It means, heck, if they're not doing anything and they're kind of tired at this time, they will go to bed. It's kind of telling them, this is your sleeping time. And once they go to sleep, they will sleep until their rest bar is fully filled again, until they have full rest. So it's not like right at midnight, they're going to wake up and start doing stuff. I then like to schedule recreation for them. I like to do a recreation hour in the morning, and I have everyone to do their recreation at the same time. So this is also good for, I like to do it around 7 or maybe even as early as 6. So they get up and they immediately, do their recreation. They need recreation to stay in a good mood. I also do recreation right before they go to bed. I do recreation at the same time for each colonist, because if they do recreation at the same time, they're more likely to socially interact, and the more chances they have to socially interact, the more chances they have to like each other. As we have discussed in the last episode, we have a few colonists that have some traits that are going to make them unpopular and not like other people. So the more I can get them kind of in a room together, the more usually they will eventually start to like each other. It could backfire. They could get into social fights and be really unhappy, and we'll have to manage that if it does. But in general, I like my colonists to hang out at the same time and do recreation at the same time in the morning and in the evening. So that's all we need to really do. And then for the rest of the time, they can do whatever they need to do. They can work. If they're really low on, recreation in the midday, they'll stop and do that. But this allows them to go to sleep at night when it's dark, so they wouldn't be as effective doing their things in the dark anyway. And then they can wake up whenever they want to, and then they'll, hang around and play in the morning and the evening. That's what I like to do for the schedule. All right, so now that we've kind of set up the background stuff, now it's time to actually do the get our colony started. So as we discussed, so we came down in crash pods. We have our colonists here, and this is all the stuff they start off with. By default, they all start off with these X's on them. That's just telling them, don't interact with these objects, keep them where they are, don't interact with them. Well, we want them to interact with them. So what I like to do, the first thing I like to do, is I like to go over here to orders, and I'll go more over all these orders in a little bit. But I go to allow. So if you go to the allow tool, you can either click it and then just drag and drop over the items you want allowed. So now the X's are gone from there. But if you right click, you can unforbid all items on the whole map. So right now, the only forbidden items are the ones right around here. So I'm going to do that, and all the X's are gone. So now everything can be interacted with. All right, so that's the first step. Next, I like to assign the weapons. So with Crash Landed, you start off with 3 weapons, 2 guns, a bolt-action rifle, a revolver, and a knife. So I'm going to give the bolt-action rifle to whoever my hunter is. That was Anessa. The bolt-action rifle is one of the best guns to go hunting with because it has one of the best ranges in the game, and the further away you are from an animal when you're hunting it, the less likely it is to attack you. So that is, again, we'll go over hunting at a later time, but so I always give my hunter the bolt-action rifle. Then I have to look between these two. I believe Guillermo is good at melee. He's only good at melee, and he has a passion for it. So I'm going to give him the knife. So what I'm doing is I'm selecting the colonist by left-clicking on them, and then I am right-clicking on the thing I want them to interact with, and then I'm going to tell him to equip the plasteel knife. I'm currently paused right now. That's why they're not doing anything. But in a second, I will have the game go forward. Maxie here, I'm going to just have her equip the final weapon, which is the revolver. All right, so I'm going to hit play. You can either hit the space bar. There's an option so that any key that you hit starts and stops the game, but I have it where it's a space bar, so you can see they're now going to go and equip their items. Okay, I'm pausing it again. All right, next is the apparel. Now, so right now, nothing is in a stockpile zone, and items need to be in stockpile zones in order for the colonists to know that you own them. So right now, as far as the colonists are concerned, we don't own anything because there's no stockpile zone. But we do have apparel. We have some flak pants, we have a flak vest, and we have a simple, a flak helmet, a plasteel flak helmet. Now, I usually give these things to my melee person because they're usually storming, they're going front lines and attacking, and they usually have to close some distance on people that might have guns, and so it's best to give them the most protection right off the bat. So what you can do is you can select your melee person and right-click and tell them to force wear something. Now, if you tell a colonist to force wear an item, you have to remember that you did that, because when you force wear an item, that means they'll keep it on forever until you tell them to drop it. So if it gets tattered, if it becomes no longer effective, they will still keep it on. Every item has a percentage of how healthy it is. When it doesn't show a percentage, that means it's at 100%. But if it were to sustain damage, it might say, flak helmet, and it might say 89%. Once something gets down to 50%, it's considered tattered, and colonists do not like wearing it. They will be annoyed if they are wearing it. Generally, if you set up your assignments for outfits and stuff correctly, they'll automatically take it off once it becomes tattered. But if it's forced worn, they won't take it off. So I, in general, don't like to tell my pawns to force wear. So what we'll do is we'll get all this stuff into a stockpile, and then the colonists will put on the clothing that they see fit. They might each put on one thing, or Inessa might put on a bunch, and then we can reassign what they should be wearing later if we're not happy with it. But honestly, right now, early game, I really don't care too much. And if I really want Guillermo to be wearing it all, I'll change up the outfit assignments, and I'll show you how to do that. But for right now, we're going to look and decide where our starting building is going to be. I'm going to put it right here where our wood already is, and I am going to make it out of wood. Right now, we just have some steel, and we have wood on the map that we landed with, or that was next to us when we landed. So I like to keep steel for things because that you need steel for almost every electronic device that you're going to make. So I like to keep steel for that. Wood is good for building things, but it is flammable. So is steel. Don't be fooled. Even though steel is metal, it is a flammable metal. So in general, you do not want to make your base out of wood or steel because it can catch on fire, and that's really bad. But right now, we don't have any stone blocks. We have stone chunks, but we can't build out of that. We have to use a stone cutting bench and then make stone blocks. But for now, we are going to make a room out of wood. So what you do is you go over here, you go to Architect, and you go to Structure. And here is Wall. If you right-click, you can see all the different materials. You could make it out of steel, wood, or silver. That's all that we have in the area right now. So wood. I'm going to make it out of wood. Again, it says we don't have enough wood stored because none of this is in a stockpile zone, so it doesn't think we own it. But the colonists will still just go and find the nearest wood, even if it isn't in a stockpile zone, to build these things. So I'm just going to make a simple building. I'm not going to try to make it too big because that'll use up a lot of resources. Also, again, none of these colonists are good at building, so it's going to take them a long time even to make this kind of small thing. And how I make bases is this is going to be our first kind of catch-all room. It's going to be the bedroom. It's going to be the storage room. It's going to be everything. Eventually, we'll make other rooms, and maybe this will just become the dining room or something like that. But for right now, it's going to be everything for us. So I laid out the walls, and then I went over to wooden doors, and I put in wooden doors on each end. It's a lot more wood to make doors, so if you're really worried about it, you could you could, you know, get rid of some of these doors. So maybe I'll just do 2 doors and do something like that. All right, so they're going to build this. They're going to use this wood. This is probably not enough wood, or maybe it's just enough. But in case it isn't, I'm going to go to orders, and I'm going to go to chop wood. And just a few trees that are around here, I'm going to chop down, get some wood out of that. Yeah, you can just drag and drop. And any trees that are ready to harvest, if they're too young or too small, it won't have you chop them. I just drag over. I don't want to do too many because, again, they're prioritizing that, so I don't want them to just be chopping. But let us get going. Oh, and maybe we should also set up our zone. So I'll talk more about zones in a bit, but first thing you want to do is stockpile zones, or the zones for where to place items. By default, a stockpile zone will have basically is a zone for every item. If you click in the zone, you can go to storage and you can see what items are allowed in that zone. And by default, everything but stone chunks and corpses are allowed in this zone. And we're gonna be fine with that. As our base gets built bigger and more complex, then we'll have specified zones for this is where we want all of our building material, and this is where we want our food, and this is where we want our clothing and all that stuff. But for now, we just want everything inside. The reason for that is most items, like clothing, will start to deteriorate over time. They will deteriorate because they are unroofed. There is no roof over the heads, and they're outdoors. So if I were to put a little wall here and then build a roof around it, it would still technically be outdoors, but at least it would be roofed and it would deteriorate slower. But we want to get them under a roof and indoors, so that's where we're going to put them in this room. These packaged survival meals, they will not spoil because of temperature and stuff like that, but they still will deteriorate if they're left outside. So we want to get them inside. Same with the medicine. Medicine will not go bad, but it can deteriorate if left outside and unroofed. So we want to make sure they are moving all their stuff to there. Again, I have hauling as a priority, so they'll probably chop these plants, then they'll get to constructing. And I'm actually going to make sure that Inessa, who's our best constructor, does constructing first things first. She's not even going to cut trees. Someone else will do that. Oh, Inessa, when you start off this game, you have a chance to start off with crypto sleep sickness. So unfortunately, she's going to have this for a little bit. It usually doesn't last longer than a day, but it messes with her some of her stats. So consciousness is basically how good she's doing at anything, her overall effectiveness. So that's not good. Manipulation's also good for building and stuff, how quickly you build, how effectively you build. So none of this is great. So she's not going to be building well anyway. So we're going to have them go. And here you can adjust the speed of which things are going. I'm going to crank it up to the max speed so they can get on with doing their stuff. As you can see, they are really slow. Even when at max speed, they're all very slow at doing stuff. I'm going to tell her to just manually start working on building. All right, so they are now getting hungry, so they're going to eat. If they eat standing up without a table, they will get a debuff, eat without table. They like to eat with a table. They want a table, and they want to sit down at a table to eat. So they're picky like that. So my first priority is in the first day. We are already at 9 a.m. on our first day. By the end of the first day, I want to get this first building up, and I want to get a table down. Those are my absolute first priorities. Now, everyone's different. Some of you might be screaming at your computer right now saying, no, you have to get beds going. Well, you do, and beds are going to be our second priority. But as long as we don't have that much wood, beds are not going to be that great. How do I want to do this? We're going to shrink this zone because we don't need it to be that big. I'm going to shrink that zone to there, and I'm going to make some beds. Now, I'm just going to architect and furniture and going to a single wooden bed. And you might be wondering what I'm doing, and I am just organizing the beds in a way that I can then put in a end table. End table gives comfort, adds to comfort in a bed if placed at the head of a bed. So this is a way to make sure I only have to make one wooden end table, and it's benefiting all three of these beds. Yeah, colonists do not like to sleep on the ground, and they don't like to sleep outside. So if we can at least get the building built and have them sleep on the floor inside, they will at least be happier than sleeping on the ground outside. So that's why the priority is to make the building first. I don't want them... what I like to do is I kind of like to plan out something like this and know where I'm building things, but then I don't want them to build these beds before they finish the room. So what I like to do is I like to shift click and highlight the things I don't want them to prioritize, and then I hit this allow button. So those blueprints are still there, but this is saying don't interact with those blueprints. Don't mess with them, don't deal with them until I take away the X. So they're gonna now build the building and the table and chairs first. And that's what I want them to prioritize. So, again, hopefully this will get done. See, she botched the construction, so she wasted a bit of the materials, and now she has to try to build it again. This is great. Okay, I might actually have her prioritize working on that table. Great, so now the table is built. You can see the quality of something down here in the bottom left. It's a normal, that's great. Here's an awful stool, so it's not as good. Normal and a normal. Okay, so they at least have a table now. So now if they're within, I think it is 35 squares of this table, they will eat at this table and then not get that debuff. So that's great that we've done that. All right, so they're still chopping, she's building. And you can see as she's working on this, I'll have you look, her construction is already 3,000. She just needs to get to 4,000 to go to the next level. So if we can get her up to level 4, that would be awesome. And you can see as she's building, well, she just finished building. Oh, but it went up a little bit as she was working on that. See? All right. So again, they're now conversing. Great. So we have our building up. And we have our table. So now I'm going to allow the beds to be built and the end table to be built. The thing you also want to think about, first priority once you have this up, is recreation sources. So this is probably a good time to talk about a colonist and their needs. So if you click on any colonist, you can see them here because I have the RimHUD mod installed, but normally you wouldn't see all this information if you're playing the vanilla version of this game with no mods, and you would need to hit needs. This shows all of the things that they need. So food, rest, and recreation are their three biggest kind of determinants for their mood. Here's their food. It's all the way up when they're full, and then it will slowly progress throughout the day. Once it gets to this first notch, they'll be hungry. Once their second notch, they'll be ravenously hungry. And then once it's fully out, they'll be starving, and that has its own consequences. Same with rest. They're going to get, they're fully rested, then they're going to be tired, then they're going to be exhausted, and then I forget what it is, but they're just so exhausted because they haven't slept. Same for recreation. When it's above these ticks, then their recreation is satisfied and they will get a bonus to their mood. See, here's recreation satisfied is +5. If that gets above this tick, it'll be fully satisfied and it's even a bigger bonus. Likewise, if they're recreation starved or deprived below these, then they'll get a minus to their mood. All of these indicate a minus buff if they get beyond it. Beauty, comfort, and whether they're outdoors or not is kind of it's very dependent on just where they are in the moment. So their beauty, they might be in a really ugly place and then go into a room that's really pretty. So these are constantly shifting throughout the day. So these are harder to keep consistently high all around. So these are, in my opinion, less of a priority to work with. You want to work with these, and you want to be constantly checking in with their mood bonuses and debuffs. So you can see here, Maxi right now, everyone has really low expectations because we're all really poor and they don't expect much. Remember, Maxi has these awesome traits. She has Sanguine and Iron-Willed, and let me show you exactly how powerful that is right now. So Sanguine means she always has a plus 12. 12 is a huge bonus. You can see it already offsets eating without a table and being in an ugly environment. Like, if she wasn't Sanguine, that would overall be a -8, but because she is Sanguine, it's overall a +4, right? If you just take those things into consideration. She is also Iron-Willed, which, look here, so this is their mood bar. This is the most important bar for a colonist. Once this mood bar gets below the first notch, then they have a minor chance of a mental break. And again, mental breaks are when a colonist will basically stop being in your control and be doing something to cope with their stress. Sometimes it just means wandering around. Sometimes it means locking themselves in their room. Sometimes it means going on a food binge. But sometimes it can mean going on a tantrum and destroying stuff, or going on a murderous rage. So they can really be bad. And if they're a pyromaniac, it could be going on a fire creating spree. So you can see, once it gets that first notch, it's a minor break threshold. Then there's a major break threshold, and then extreme break threshold. So if it gets below this final notch, it is very likely that they're going to break at any moment. This is what maxis look like. You can see they're really far down here, but a normal colonist, they're all the way up here. So you can see Guillermo is actually fairly close to already being having a minor chance to break. Once he gets below this notch, he'll have a minor chance to break. That's because his mood will be below 35%. Maxi, she only has a minor break once her mood is below 17%. So it's crazy how much Iron-Willed gives you in your leniency of your mood. So she can be actually really upset and still not be in a break chance. So that's great. So all of your next decisions should really be based on what do my colonists want, what are they missing, and what do they need. So talking about recreation, there are ways that colonists can get their recreation without anything that you have to do. They'll talk with one another, and they'll also go stargazing, meaning they'll go out in the middle of a patch and just look up at the stars. Right now it says Maxi is wandering. That's what they can do for recreation. That's because they have no other forms of recreation. But what a colonist likes is to have many different forms of recreation. So one of the priorities for your first build is to go to your recreation tab and make a horseshoes pin. It only costs 10 wood, and if you want, you can look at what the horseshoes pin does, and it satisfies the dexterity play recreation type. There's different recreation types, and this satisfies dexterity play. And you can see over here on the right, there's all the different recreation types: solitary relaxation, social interaction, dexterity play, cerebral play, television, telescope study, chemical consumption, so taking recreational drugs, food consumption, and music. So all these can be a way to recreate. So the easiest ones to make early on is dexterity for horseshoes. If you have a table and the gathering spot is on, which it is by default, that'll be good for social recreation. They'll do their solo recreation in their own. And then another one that is good to make early on is a chess table. If you're doing tribal, it will be the game of which is a game that predates chess. And anyway, but it'll give you a recreation bonus. So I like to, you usually have to pair this with a stool, but I like to use it, and this stool can then be used for that table or that chess table. But I'm actually going to unallow this because I would rather them make that horseshoe pin and then make these beds first. And I actually am going to unallow the end table because I'd rather them make the beds before they make the end tables. This is also something I should mention. Once they built this room and it was fully enclosed, then they automatically roofed it over. But because they automatically roofed it over, it is actually dark. So if you look in the bottom left corner, inside here is dark. Even though outside is bright, this is in an enclosed room with no light source, so it is dark. So actually now anything that they build here is going to be a lot slower and worse because they're building it in the dark. So what I'm going to tell them to do is furniture, torch lamp, and I'm going to make a little torch lamp in the corner there, and that'll provide light. It also provides a little bit of heat, which, you know, right now it's 65 degrees. They don't need that heat, but being a little bit warmer won't be bad. And I'm going to let's tell Guillermo. I'm going to tell Guillermo to prioritize working on that torch lamp because I want them to make that torch lamp first. Oh man, he keeps botching it. Maxie made an awful bed. Great. Okay, well, she made 2 awful beds. Now, if it's a worse quality bed than normal, then it means that they just don't get their sleep recovery. Their rest effectiveness is lower, so they won't regain their rest bar as quickly. So that'll be annoying. But maybe if I make a Nessa, we need wood still. I'm going to try to get Anessa to build the final one, so hopefully we can at least have one bed that is good. Okay, so we need to chop a little bit more wood. So go down to chop wood, and you guys can chop that stuff here. And then I'm actually going to have Maxie prioritize. She will never do hauling. Okay, I'm going to have Guillermo prioritize hauling. And I'm going to shift click, and that's how you can queue up multiple things. No place to store it. So this is already full. All right, well, actually, we do not need the steel indoors. Steel being indoors is pointless because steel does not deteriorate outdoors. So I'm going to go to storage, and this is the part, it's stuff like this that makes RimWorld slow for beginners because you're just not sure where everything is in these vast menu options. But I am going to have them not need steel they're not going to need any of these things to be in this stockpile because all these things, gold, jade, plasteel, silver, steel, uranium, they all do not deteriorate when outside. Wood does deteriorate when outside, so I want the wood inside, but I don't want the steel inside. And now I'm going to make another zone, stockpile zone. Let's just make it over here. And I'm going to clear everything, and this will be just for those things that are good for outside and don't need to be roofed over, right? So I'm having Guillermo haul that vest, and now I'm going to have him haul the pants. Currently, there's no place to store it, but I'll have Anessa haul some of that steel. So now there is some steel to haul, and I'm going to have him haul these pants. I'm prioritizing the hauling because I don't want them to deteriorate, and I want to make space. So I'm going to have you haul that steel and haul more steel. Oh, and Nessa vomited in here, so that makes it dirty, so I'm going to make her clean that after she finishes that bed. I have people able to that. All right. And then after that, you can then haul in All right, Anessa, clean your vomit, please. All right, so hopefully you get a sense of kind of the things you can do early game and what the priorities are for that first day. So again, we're just about to get to sleepy times. We have our table up. We have enough stools for everyone to sit there at the same time if they need to, which is great. We have our first room fully roofed. We have our beds prioritized and made. They're not great beds, so as soon as we get more wood, we'll probably want to make better beds than this. We also need to give Inessa as much construction jobs as possible so that she gets up to level 4, because soon we'll want to make us a power source, a generator of some kind, and you can only do that with construction 4. So this is great. Once she finishes that, I'm going to have her haul these meals in. Once Guillermo see, he's putting on his flak pants. That's great. I want Guillermo to wear those anyway, so that's perfect. So once you've finished hauling those flak pants, Guillermo, I want you to haul the medicine. Okay, so Guillermo already put on everything. He put on the stuff we wanted him to, so that's great. We don't have to reassign that to him or anything like that. He's got the melee guy, and he's fully outfitted to charge at people that are shooting at him. Great, so now that we have those things set up and we have our recreations, Maxie is already playing horseshoes, and as she's playing that, you can see her recreation's going to go up. It went above that second notch, so now she has recreation fully satisfied. That's a +10. That is a great bonus to have. And look, her mood is really high. When your mood is super high, and you're in a good mood, they have the chance to get inspired. And that's a great thing. It'll hopefully happen during this playthrough, so you'll see what that is. It can be a lot of things. They could get an inspired taming, so the next animal they try to tame, they automatically succeed. That's usually what an inspiration is. It's an automatic success on the next thing they attempt. So if you tell them to construct something and they have inspiration in creativity, which is the catch-all inspiration for making anything, and you tell them to make a bed, they'll make a great bed. They'll make one of the best beds they're able to make. And the better quality of things, not only are they more valuable, so you can sell them for more items, but also they're usually better in some degree. So, a legendary bed is a bed that is so good that it really helps your restfulness, and you only need 4 hours of sleep instead of 6.5 or whatever. So let me just kind of go over some of the basic tabs down here and what you can make your colonists do, and then I'll basically play out this colony for the next few days in the next few videos and talk about the events that happen and what you might want to do in order to overcome them. So here is the Architect tab. This is the main tab for doing pretty much anything. Orders are basically things that you want to queue up to have your colonists do. Very self-explanatory. Deconstruct is deconstruct these items. Mining, mine out. If I want them to mine their steel over here, I can hit mine and I can say, oh, mine out all these squares. You can cancel and then drag and cancel all those things you've queued. Smoothing surface is if you've made a wall next to the edge of a mountain. It smooths out that wall and kind of makes it an actual wall and not just rough rock face. So it makes the place prettier. Hauling things is about hauling stone chunks, setting up stone chunks to be hauled, because stone chunks, they'll just leave them around unless you specifically tell them to haul to a stockpile. Cutting plants is exactly what it sounds like. It is for cutting plants regardless of how old they are or what they will yield. Harvesting is for cutting mature plants to harvest what they need. Chopping wood is basically the harvesting of trees. Hunting is to hunt animals. Slaughter is for if you have a pet and you need to slaughter it for food, or because you can't afford to feed it anymore, you can do that. That's a good point. Whenever you get a pet, you should see what they eat. You can go onto the eye, and they eat raw vegetables, live plants. They'll also eat processed foods. So they won't eat meat. Obviously, they're a horse, so they're not a predator, so they won't feed themselves. So we need to start getting veggies grown immediately. And that comes to the next priority, which we probably should have gotten done in the first day. It's not a big deal. Usually by the second day, you want to start planting. And we have a nice grow zone here. I'm rambling. I'm sorry, I do that. Taming is for taming animals. Uninstalling is for if you have furniture set up, uninstalling it, packs it into a box, and makes it only take up 1 square, and so you can store it, so it's not being used. And you have to uninstall like furniture in order to sell it and things like that. Claim. So if there are things on the map like this wall over here and you want to make that wall part of your base, you could claim it and then it would be yours. That's good, especially for doors. If a door is not claimed by you, anyone can use it. So an enemy could just walk through your door, a door, if it wasn't claimed. Once you claim it, then they would have to break it down because it is yours and you don't want to let them in. Strip is for stripping enemies of their clothes. We'll get into why you would maybe want to do that later on. Opening is for opening stuff, which really doesn't. I wonder if this is an old thing because that really doesn't come in play really much anymore. Forbidding is for forbidding items, and allowing is for allowing items. Then there's planning tools where you can kind of sketch out what you want to do, but I have a mod that's advanced planning that gives you a lot of extra colors and stuff, and you can change the opacity to make it really light and stuff like that. So this is a mod actually, but built into the game is a basic just white square planning sketching out. The next, other than orders, the other big thing is the zoning. So there's different kinds of zones. We've already talked a little bit about stockpile zones. That's for items. Default is a stockpile zone is for everything except chunks and corpses, and a dumping to stockpile zone is by default for stone chunks and corpses. Because corpses are a big part of this game. When you're hunting animals, you'll create animal corpses, and when you're fighting enemies, you'll create human corpses. And people don't like to be around human corpses, so you want to make sure that you have a stockpile zone somewhere out of the way for them. We'll get into that, but basically it really doesn't matter which one of these you can pick because you can always change the storage options. So even though this is a stockpile zone, I could clear it all and make it for corpses. So really they're the exact same type of zone. They're just default, have different things they allow. Growing zone is what I'm going to set up right here, right now, and that's for planting. So I'm going to turn on the fertility overlay so I can see really clearly where the rich soil is. So early on, you're going to want to grow rice. My recommendation is to grow rice and corn. The reason for this is rice is the quickest thing that grows. It grows in just a couple of days, but it has the smallest yield. So it's good for a short-term food source. Corn, on the other hand, is the exact opposite. It takes forever to grow, but once it comes in and is ready to harvest, you will have a crap ton of corn. So my first two zones, I like to make a bunch of rice and corn. Now, if I remember correctly, none of our colonists are particularly good at plants. So they're going to be really slow at planting. Yeah. Yep. They're going to be really slow at planting, so I am not going to make these zones way too big. Because if I make them super big, then they'll spend a whole long time working on them and not doing other things. And really, we just need to get it in. By default, this is potatoes. Now, potatoes are actually a great plant for if you don't have rich soil. I would not recommend planting potatoes in rich soil because potatoes actually don't really benefit from really fertile soil. They grow almost just as quickly in non-fertile soil, in less fertile soil, like this stony soil. So if you have a lot of non-fertile soil around, potato is a great plant. And it is kind of a halfway in between rice and corn. It has more of a yield than rice, but also grows a little bit slower than rice. So it's quicker than corn, slower than rice, and it yields a fair amount when you make it. It's the default plant. You can see there's a lot of plants you can do. Some require a specific kind of skill. Those are usually the ones for drugs. Heal root is for healing, making medicine. We don't have the skill to plant it, but there is wild medicine on this map that I'll show you in a second that we can harvest when we need to. Plus, we already have the industrial medicine in, so that's not a high priority right now. So this is going to be our rice. And then I'm going to make another zone. And we'll do something like this. And that'll be our corn. Again, it's going to take forever for this to come in, but once it does, it's going to provide enough corn to make several meals. Okay, I'm going to turn off that overlay. And here, this is like a wild heal root. It's ready to harvest right now, so if I hit harvest on that, they will harvest it and they'll make a little herbal medicine. There's no processing required, it just becomes medicine. The other very quick food source that is usually available, let me see if I can see one, are berries on berry bushes. You can see there's a lot of empty bushes, but is there any berry bushes around? Oh, here. So there's a berry bush. It's ready to harvest. That'll make berries. Berries can be made into meals, but they can also be eaten raw. In general, colonists do not like to eat raw vegetables or raw food, but they don't mind eating raw berries. However, all raw food, even raw berries, have a 2% chance to cause food poisoning at the base minimum. So even if you eat wild berries and they aren't upset by that, they don't get a mood debuff for eating raw berries, they still will have a chance of getting food poisoning. Of course, we're probably going to get food poisoning anyway once we start cooking because no one is very good at cooking. But for right now, we have these packaged survival meals. And the rule of thumb is if they're an average colonist, they'll eat basically 2 meals a day. So that means with our current colony, we're consuming 6 meals in a day. And what do we have? We have over here, you can look at, we have 42. So, we have about 6-7 days worth of meals left. So it's good that if we get these veggies planted soon, but we're not champing at the bit to get meals right now because we're good on meals. So I'm just going to let them go. So Inessa got tired, so she's already going. Maxie's asleep. Guillermo's finishing up what he's doing. You can see his rest. Once your rest gets down below 33%, that's when they start getting tired, and he's going in. Now, they are all sleeping in the same room, which makes this room by default a barracks. Any room that has more than one bed in it becomes a barracks. And in general, colonists do not like to be in barracks. If you go, they have to sleep here for a while for it to take effect, but they they don't like being in barracks. Even if it's a really nice barracks, see, they are in an awful barrack, so they get a -7 bonus. They don't like being in barracks. Even if it's a nice barrack, they'll still get a minus mood debuff. Only if it's an extremely impressive barracks will they get a very small positive mood bonus. So this room would need to be really awesome for them to be okay with it being a barracks. Eventually, and we'll get this in our next video, we're going to build some bedrooms for them so they have their own room, so that this debuff goes away. And this debuff will last for a full day. So every day that they are sleeping in this barracks, the whole next day they're going to be unhappy. So we want to make sure we make their bedrooms next. But it's better to be in an awful barracks than to sleep outdoors and on the ground. So at least they're on beds. I think I'm going to stop it there. I know I ramble a lot, and that's kind of how I've been doing this. It's kind of stream of consciousness. I'll go over the rest of the zones and the rest of the controls in the next video. But I really wanted to just kind of go over the priorities of your very first day and how to get rid of some of those mood debuffs early on, so that your colonists have the highest chance of being successful and to being productive for you in the first week, which is one of the most important weeks to kind of, get a lot done before, stuff starts happening and you start getting raided and quests start coming your way and things like that. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions or comments, or you have a particular thing you'd like me to address in my videos, please leave a comment. I'd be happy to respond and incorporate that in my upcoming videos. But until then, have fun and good luck.